Stephen Fry, everybody. Stephen!
Oh, my dear Craig.
Stephen, what a very odd world it is. I've known you for, what, 20 years, maybe?
Least, all of, yes, when you were I was a sad drunkard.
Yeah, I was. That's right. You knew me back in the day.
Spectacle, absolutely.
I know, it was ghastly.
Always flecked with vomit, as I remember.
Yeah,
and you had,
good times.
proper teeth instead of these extraordinary. Look at that.
These are my real teeth.
I know they are. It's one thing you have is good teeth.
Yeah,
which, makes me doubt you really are British, because look at that. I got the real thing.
They are mine mostly, but they do all sorts of operations on them when you come through immigration. No, yeah, they're just whiteners and drills and bits, and it's a ghastly business. Hey, the Fry and Laurie.
Yes.
Hugh Laurie has become...
Macaulay Hugh has become stratusferically important in the world.
He's a big-time, huge star out here.
He took time off to get a medical degree and a degree in American accents as well, which is...
He's very good at it,
isn't it? I know, a lot of Americans believe he is American.
I know, they get upset when he goes, I say, you know.
I know. He's a remarkable actor. I think House is an extraordinary achievement.
It's very good, isn't
because he does things... I mean, one of the hardest things to do as an actor is to play smart. You actually believe that he is as intelligent as his character is. And as you know, most actors... most actors are... Well, they find
I know.
They don't really know which way to sit on a lavatory.
Yeah, I know. They're not very bright, bless them. You're very bright, though. You've written books and poetry, my God. Look at this. A poetry book.
Yes.
Isn't poetry very difficult?
I don't think it's difficult. I think everybody's a poet inside. I think it's one of the forgotten arts. It's so much easier to write a poem if you have some sense of, I'm going to write a sonnet. And that's all that book is. It's just a way
Well, it's interesting that you're obviously quite passionate about it. I think poetry is one of those art forms that's often got very, very wrong. Yeah. Usually by people who are recently sober.
Very true.
You know, it's like... stuff to do with the inner child, great...
don't.
Lord, I hate that stuff.
Yeah. Also, companies that try and sell greetings cards. Extraordinary idea.
Yeah.
They're really the equivalent of... Well, I mean, there isn't enough vomit in the world. Open one of these things and...
I love you. Yeah, no, this is quite a ghastly business.
Horrifying.
Now listen, you're over here periodically. You come over here quite a lot. And I live here now. I've moved over here, don't know if you noticed that. Yeah, the drink sales have plummeted in the UK. What about how's your relationship with the press over there? I always had a very kind of... Well, they ignored me, basically, but yeah.
I regard being an actor, being in the public eye, as a picnic. We are overpaid, we are overpraised, pampered, and generally speaking, life is very, very good if you're in the public eye in whichever side of the Atlantic you happen to be.
Right.
But like all picnics, there are wasps.
Yes.
And the British press are basically wasps. And sometimes you turn up at the picnic and it's great, and then the wasps arrive, and you just want to dive into cold water and escape. They make other times you go, nah, it's wasps, you know.
Yeah, they're very vicious. The British.
They are vicious as wasps can be, and pointless as wasps are.
Yeah.
You know, as you know,
wasps, by the way, not white Anglo-Saxon Protestants.
No.
Who also can be very annoying at a picnic.
I'm sorry. As a white Anglo-Saxon, sort of Jewishy person, I think Protestants,
well, I know.
Damn them to hell.
Yeah,
they are already, in fact, aren't they?
Well, Protestants, I don't know. I'm one, actually.
Are you?
Yes.
Now, that's a big deal in Glasgow.
Yeah, you've got to be one or the other, yeah.
We live in a very tribal world all over again. When I was growing up, we had this vague idea that it was all over. This whole business of what religion you were mattering and what you did with your body mattering. And now suddenly everyone wants to smack everybody in the face because they're one religion and one other.
Yes, I know. It's everybody in other people's business. I don't like it.
It was Yasser Arafat, oddly enough, who said, you wouldn't think necessarily he'd be the one to say it, but he said all religious wars are the history of people arguing over who's got the biggest invisible friend. And It's rather well put.
That is lovely, isn't it?
I like that.
Yeah, we have to take a break. We'll be right back. We'll be right back to Stephen Fry, everybody. Please welcome the very lovely and clever Stephen Fry, everybody. Welcome, Stephen.
My dear
How lovely to see you again. We won't be needing these.
No.
It's lovely to see you. I haven't seen you in such a long
lovely
time.
to be seen by you.
Well, look at this whole a book with pictures. You've been so clever and brainy your whole life writing books that had no pictures, and then suddenly it's all pictures.
Finally, yes. It's nothing to do with the fact that it's for the American market that it has pictures at all. No, I assure you. No. I'm speaking to an American.
I am an American now. Yes, I'm an American citizen. Look, I've got my tattoo and everything.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. I'm it. Would you ever think of that?
Yes, I genuinely would.
Really?
I mean, the reason I did this is about a journey I made.
Did you go to every state in America?
I went to every one of your 50 glorious states.
Some of them are better than others.
Yes, that is. I didn't spend that long in Delaware, it must be said.
Yeah.
Well, we sort of waved as we went through.
Yeah, no, Delaware's where all the credit card letters come from. That's where they are.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, and Mr. and Mrs. DuPont have a big factory there, I think.
Yes, they do. I don't know. It wasn't in the citizenship exam.
So did you have to learn all the state capitals and the mottos?
No, they've changed the test. It was quite easy when I took the test. The test, when I took it, it was, do you like soda? Yes. Do you hate Al-Qaeda? Yes. Come on in.
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome.
That's
Here's your
right.
gum.
Yes.
But now it's I think it's a bit harder now. Yeah. But I think you'll be fine. I think you're clever.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. Well, it's an odd thing. When I was about 10, my mother told me that my father, who's a physicist, had been offered a job when she was pregnant with me in Princeton University.
Right.
And he very nearly took it. And she said it was really funny because if he had, of course, he would have been born in America.
You would have been in America.
I know. And the moment she told me that, I had this sort of image of a doppelganger living in Princeton called Steve, who would be physically the same as me, identical in every physical respect. Maybe a bit trimmer, maybe a bit fatter, let's be honest. And I just, to this day, I don't know, I mean, would my attitude have been different? Would my sense of humour have been different?
I don't know. Not in Princeton. That's kind of pretty much England.
I guess it is. Yeah.
But I look forward to your letters.
Yes.
And let me just tell you one thing. The spelling better be good. Now, but didn't you, one of your books, wasn't that set in Princeton?
Yes, it was, funny enough.
Yes. Was that because of that? You did that?
I suppose I've always had a bit of an obsession. And oddly enough, my great university friend, Hugh Laurie, plays a doctor in Princeton.
That's right, yes.
How weird is that?
Yeah, it's kind of odd. Have you ever been to Princeton?
I made a film in Princeton. I did a movie called IQ.
IQ, with Tim Robbins and Meg Ryan.
And Walter Matthau.
Walter Matthau, yeah. That was a good movie.
It was. I played the usual English part of it.
Emotionally.
Emotionally.
You were the jerk.
A cripple.
Don't come along, Buffy, and all that.
The emotionally constipated nobody who gets axed by... But I tell you, Tim Robbins' best friend was played by Tony Shalhoub, who then went on to be Mr. Monk.
Mr. Monk, yeah.
Then I did another movie with Tony Shalhoub in it, and also in it was James Gandolfini, who went on to be Mr. Soprani.
The Soprano.
Is it?
Yeah. Oh. Mr. Soprani is...
OK. It's... those tablets in the dressing room you leave for your guests.
Acid. Yeah. Acid.
I wondered.
Have some orange juice. You got to take the vitamin C.
Yes. It worked surprisingly tennis racket.
It takes time to take an effect. Well, listen. The last time you were here, we had a discussion, not an argument, a debate about flying, because I was saying how terrified of flying I was, and you were saying you were a pilot.
Yes, I'm terrified of crashing, but not of flying.
Yes.
Flying is fine.
I'm also terrified of crashing, but in the time since it's been 3 years, in that 3 years, I have since become a pilot, and I have my pilot's license.
Oh, congratulations.
Yes.
What do you fly?
I fly a Cessna.
Oh, brilliant.
Cessna.
That's just a little bit pathetic, though, because that's got a... It's not a tail dragger.
It's not a tail dragger,
That's
no, but
fun.
It's got 240 horsepower engine in it, this thing.
No, it is.
You start this thing up, it's like...
The strange thing about flying, it's great to fly, and being up there is marvellous. In little old England, where I am, which is about the size of one of the three...
Delaware, I think.
It's about exactly tiny. There's a part of England where I grew up, and I know almost every field and every church. The moment I flew, 5 seconds, you're lost. You look down.
It looks very different.
It's just extraordinary, isn't it? And those are the things you have to learn how to read wind and how to look down and
look down at
orient and look down on people. Yeah.
You can learn that at Princeton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
No. I've got a chip in my shoulder. I never had a proper education, and I feel that when I was about 10 years old.
You mentioned Flaubert.
Flaubert, yeah.
How many talk shows in America have people who mention Flaubert? That's pretty impressive. You should be proud.
Yes, mentioning Flaubert. Although, dude, I must ask you, are you a fan of Flaubert?
Yes, I am.
He was all right. He had a contempt for the bourgeoisie, though.
So he did. But he also, you said he kind of deconstructed structure.
He did deconstruct it a little bit.
Yeah, a tiny bit, yes.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Well, to have contempt for the bourgeoisie was a little bit,
But he was almost anal in the way he wrote. The mot juste, the exact word. He would sometimes spend a week on a sentence, a single sentence, polishing it up.
A week in a single sentence?
Yeah.
See, I got no time for that.
No.
I have nothing but contempt for Flaubert now. I used to enjoy him, although I do portray him as a polystyrene pig, to be fair.
Yeah. And you insulted English cuisine, which was very upsetting.
Well, it's an easy laugh.
You're Scottish.
I am.
In Scotland,
it's even worse, yes.
Ladies and gentlemen.
It is. No, there's no doubt. I'm not denying
They deep fry Mars bars.
Yes, they do.
They put them in hot oil and they fry them.
Yeah.
That's a fact, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, there's places in America where that's popular.
Is it?
Yeah. Many places that you go to Dollywood, Dolly Parton's place, you can get deep-fried candy.
That's good.
I think so. I made that up. Yeah. But it's possible. Do you ever just make stuff up and then say it's true and people believe you because you're brainy?
All the time.
Yeah.
But fun enough, we didn't go to Dollywood. It's just in Tennessee, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
I did have an experience in Tennessee that is one of the most shattering things that ever happened to me.
Wow.
So it's a marvellous place.
Right.
In the morning, I'd been in North Carolina in a balloon looking down on the Blue Ridge Mountains, and then we landed, and I thought, how beautiful it is, this part of the world.
Very nice part
We
of the world.
drove through to Knoxville, which is a nice town, and there's a campus. And in the corner of the campus, there was a lady waiting for me and the camera crew. We were filming there, and I hadn't been told exactly what we were going to see, but that I should be ready for something slightly weird. And I was ready for something weird because I was in America. So yes. That's a good thing.
Yes.
And there was a padlocked pair of gates and razor wire above. She said, "Come in." She unpadlocked the gate. In we went, crew and everything. She padlocked it again. We were in a sort of garden. She said, "Put on these little paper shoes, these little booty things."
Like they wear in the CSIs.
Those kind of things, exactly. And some rubber gloves.
Like they wear in the clubs.
Like they wear in the clubs that you and I usually go to. And then, around me, this is going to get creepy, so the laughter better start getting nervous, because it's really weird.
It's all nervous all the time.
Yes. I noticed kind of little white things and flashes of black and whatever. And I was in a place known as the Body Farm. And it was filled with cadavers, with dead bodies in various states of decomposition, of suppurating, rotting decomposition. And in various places, some were left open. There was a car, some were in the trunk of the car, there's a little cabin.
You sure
some
this is
under
not Detroit
sofas.
we're talking about here?
The whole purpose of the place was the Department of Forensic Anthropology, and it was the first of its kind in the world.
Good Lord.
And you remember that William Peterson character, Gruesome Grissom, as he was known on CSI,
yes.
who had this thing about the bugs, that you could tell time of death from the bugs that were hatched inside a dead body. That's where they discovered this, and I saw bodies with these maggots and things crawling. I saw things I would never hope ever to see again, and smelt. It was as if Satan found his way up my nostrils and tried to claw out everything that was decent in me. You see, because they have to have, thank you. That's good. They had a body crammed into a, sort of like a mailbox, and it was just a brown soup with bones sticking out, and a smell that I will never forget. And Yeah, it's creepy and it's grim, but the wonderful woman taking me around, professor in this department, she's going to leave her body to have that done to it, and it does. It resolves murder cases. Some people are found not guilty of murder. Some people are found guilty of murder as a result of this extraordinary thing. But do you know, there's a phrase which you must have come across as an American and before, which is only in America.
Yeah.
Now, and when you hear that phrase, only in America, it means something extraordinary, something extreme.
Usually something good,
something
actually.
good.
Yeah.
But you know well enough that if someone was to say only in Britain,
it
would be something damp, miserable, Huey, not till Wednesday, and then it's unlikely.
You
know, it's
only in Britain.
Only in Britain.
I have a theory, by the way. I have a theory about Britain, though. That I think that the people of Britain think that we Americans, which I am now, they think that we Americans are a lot weirder than we actually are.
Yeah.
I think we're not. America's not that weird.
No, and I think it's the fault. Actually, one of the reasons I did this programme is I was slightly fed up of a lot of British journalists going over to America, finding the weirdest people they could.
Yes. Well, I'm so glad you went to the body farm in Tennessee. That'll set them right.
That was somehow an ennobling thing. It was good science, you know. But what I didn't go and do was look up sort of mad Aryan warriors or militia people or strange religious fringe people who thought that God hated everybody. And you know this, because that's easy to do, and then you film them.
Very easy.
And then we British hug ourselves and say, aren't we normal and aren't Americans weird? But actually my experience of America is I don't know that I've ever visited a country where there are a higher proportion of genuinely hospitable, kindly, well-disposed people.
It's absolutely true.
I'd rather, you know, run out of gas in a small town in America than in Europe and knock on a strange door. You would get people and they'd walk there, there's my daughter, help yourself, and you know, there's a... they're just... I mean, that's... Why would I say that?
I don't know.
I'm not
you of all people.
I'm not even
I don't
straight.
Understand it. It doesn't make any sense.
They would have spotted that.
Yes.
They would have seen he's gay, he's English, it's fine. There's my daughter.
There's your daughter. Yeah, it's lovely. Now, please, let's not make it 3 years until the next time, because I don't want to get any more tattoos or more flying lessons. I'd like to just carry on normally. It's lovely to see you. Good luck with this. I am a great fan of your work, and I'm looking forward to both reading this and seeing the show. Will it be on BBC America?
It's on PBS, actually.
Oh, really?
Yes, it is, on various PBS stations throughout the nation.
Oh, that's very classy.
Yes, we'd like to think so.
Stephen Fry, everybody. I'm going to talk to one man. Now, it's not just any man. The man I'm going to talk to tonight is... It's really protection for me. Stephen Fry, who will be the guest on the show tonight, is a very brilliant man, a very clever man. To be honest, I knew him in London in the 1980s, and I was kind of intimidated by him. He's very clever and very successful, and I thought, well, if I can't do the show tonight, he would be able to handle it fine on his own. So, in the words of my predecessor, the late and much lamented Mr. Tom Snyder, sit back, fire up the colour-teenies, and watch the pictures as they fly through the air. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to Los Angeles, California. Welcome to the Late Late Show. I am your host, TV's Craig Ferguson. I'd like to welcome tonight a friend of mine. He's an actor, a comedian, a friend of the show. Please welcome the lovely Stephen Fry. I'll have to clap myself, Stephen, because we don't have it. Thank you for doing this.
I'm honoured to be a little white mouse in your laboratory experiment.
Yes,
really.
It's not really that much of an experiment, though, is it? I mean, people have been
talking to people in this CBS building here. They've been going around as if suddenly a new alien species has been discovered. It's the most exciting day in the history of this broadcasting station.
Really?
Unbelievable. It's extraordinary. People are going, will it work? Is it possible to talk to someone without people whooping in the background?
I must say I'm a little bit nervous about it. Because the idea of just talking to someone, it does leave you and me kind of vulnerable to anything that comes up.
Yeah.
And I wonder if anything. Well, let's start at the. Let's start at the beginning for me with you, which is I used to watch you on British television when I was working in a bar. And
it's a dangerous place for you to work.
Yeah, it was actually. Yeah, actually, I was kind of good at working behind a bar because I made sure everyone else was drunk, which they liked, and then I didn't look so bad around them. But I used to watch you, and I always thought, all through the 80s, when I would bump into you in London when I was getting into show business, and you were doing terribly well in Britain, I always held you up as someone who had their life completely together.
It's strange, that, isn't it? It's like, I mean, this is sort of a truth about all humans, is that we, you know, like you arrive at a party,
right,
and everybody's in your mind armed with a club, and all you have is a little Q-tip behind your back, and you think somehow everybody else was at a lesson at school where they learnt some life trick that you will never know because you missed that lesson and you'll never catch up.
I'm fascinated.
And they think the same as of you.
I'm fascinated to hear you say that because I had always assumed that you were, until I read actually your autobiography, I'd always assumed that you were the golden gifted child, you know, the Cambridge education, the studying of the classics, the knowing lots of clever people who were very attractive and rich. And I had a terrible chip in my shoulder about that particular group of people. I had kind of grown up thinking that the intelligent,
you were ghastly. We're all horrible, spoiled, pampered, overpraised, and I knew that that's how everybody thought of me. And I thought I was from a generation that was born at least 20 years too late. That maybe if I'd been born in the 50s, when wearing a tweed jacket and smoking a pipe and talking about Catullus and Ovid was somehow acceptable, and you were admired for it. Whereas I felt that I was born into a post-punk era in which the idea of even speaking in sentences that didn't break up at the end and go sort of and like and oh I wonder, but just having an articulate voice was in itself an offence. It was like rubbing people's faces in the dirt, and that I was hated for it.
Yes, punk was it did have a real anti-intellectual streak.
So I genuinely felt that simply my affect, my manner, everything about me would guarantee to make people despise me.
Do you think that still exists?
There are parts of me that think that, yes.
Yeah.
But I know that they would find me even less acceptable if I fraudulently attempted to be demotic and street and hip. It just doesn't suit me. It's like when I wear sunglasses. No matter how bright the sun, people say, what are you doing wearing sunglasses?
Yeah,
they know
you're English. Yeah, you should accept the brightness.
But there are some British people, no one would say that to Mick Jagger.
Right.
You know, there are British people who are cool, hard to believe as it is. And then there are people like me who just seem to be made of tweed. I can't help it, no matter how hard I try. And even if you tell people things about yourself that show your difference. In England, for example, the fact that I'm a Jew, the fact that I was in prison by the time I was 17, the fact that I was expelled from schools, that I'm gay, that I was.
You're really the
drug addict. I was a drug addict for 15 years.
Yeah.
Not that I wish to boast about these things.
I was shocked by your drug use when I heard about it, because I was doing drugs and drinking at the same time, but it was very obvious to everyone around me that I was doing that. You were kind of, you know, you were talking and you were writing musicals and you were very productive. And
I used to say that I took cocaine to calm me down. I was the only person I knew.
Did it have that effect?
Well, this is another thing about me, which is very tedious and people get bored with hearing this from everybody, but I am bipolar as well. And so I do have manic moments when I'm extraordinarily energized. And so, if you like, the excuse, for, if such a thing can be acceptable, for taking drugs was that if you are subject to mood changes over which you have no control, it's very tempting to take some drug or substance which can control your moods, because then you have a semblance, or a pretense at least, of being able to control your moods.
Were you aware of that when you were taking them?
No, I think, as I say, I don't want to sound like a justification with what is a stupid act and a tedious act amongst show business people. Oh, yawn, he took coke, big deal. You know, I know how dull it is to hear, you know, reformed addicts going on about it, but nonetheless, I'll risk that by saying that, it is a definite. I'm sure there are lots of people watching who know that feeling of mood change when you wake up one morning and you feel ghastly for no reason. I mean, all of us can feel ghastly because there's a bill that's come in, or our children have misbehaved, or some awful thing has happened that is genuinely upsetting. But when the sun is still shining and things are no different from they were the day before, but you feel you feel worthless to the nth degree. You feel absolutely like
you still get that today?
Excrement. Yeah, not today, fortunately. It's down
well, right, but you still experience it.
I do, yes. I get these swings.
And how do you treat it now?
I don't actually. I made a documentary, two-hour films on this subject. I spoke over here to a friend of mine, the actress Carrie Fisher.
Oh yes, I've spoken to Carrie a lot.
I'm sure you have.
It's very visible with her.
With her.
If you're, you know, who you're going to get, lady up or lady down. I mean,
see, I'm actually cyclothymic.
What does that actually? Does that mean? Is that a sort of Cambridge version of bipolar?
Well, in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, it is like a lower version of bipolar. It's bipolar 1, bipolar 2, and some people in America call this bipolar light.
Well, why is it different from the other ones then?
Well, the serious thing about bipolarity, which used to be called manic depression, of course,
right,
is that it is a very morbid, as doctors would call it, a very morbid condition. It increases your chances of an early death by a considerable factor.
From suicide?
From suicide and from neglect of one's diet, neglect of exercise,
right,
and of course self-medication, as it's called, i.e., you know, basically addiction and the use of all kinds of substances.
When you put it like that, it makes me think that, and I'm not pushing an agenda for this at all, but it does sound like perhaps there's a lot more of a around than one would initially think.
Yeah, I mean, there's a danger of overdiagnosis, of course, and the purpose of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, as it's called, which defines it, is to stop people making claims in court or for compensation just because they're feeling a bit hacked off. They've decided.
Well, that's the other side of it. Yeah. I mean, it seems to me, particularly in Los Angeles, you see a lot of this where there is a sort of the pathology of the human condition, that everything has a sickness and an excuse. Everyone has well, I did this because I did. I mean, I don't think that... I was quite interested to watch... Did you watch Tiger Woods'
I did. I'm afraid I cried. I'm a real sentimentalist, but I couldn't help it.
I was interested by it, though, because he didn't... He kind of said that he talked a little bit about the Buddhist faith, which I found kind of fascinating.
I was surprised by that, but on the other hand, why you know, sportsmen talk about faith all the time.
Right, of course,
used to it, I suppose. I mean, one of the odd things about that is, I don't know about you, you know this thing trolling? Troll?
Is it something
like a little Norwegian thing that lives under a bridge?
Right, you answer 3 questions, you cross the bridge, or...
Well, that word is used to describe aggressive, mostly unpleasant comments on web pages.
Yes, of course, I know that.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
Right.
And it has become almost impossible, I find now, to look at something online, like the Tiger Woods thing. I watched that on
right,
without your eye thinking, I mean, I don't want to go below the picture because people will be saying such vile things.
Absolutely. I saw that with my son, when Soupy Sales, who was an American comedian, a groundbreaking comedian, he died a few months ago, wasn't it, when Soupy Sales died? And my son, who's almost 9, wanted to see him. And wanted to see, because he'd heard the news, and was he funny? So I went on the YouTube to to show him it, and underneath people were saying mean things and cussing and using the F word about Soupy Sales. How can you hate Soupy? Anyone called Soupy, you know? I mean, but Soupy Sales, saying mean things about them, and I think what happens is that people can't help but declare themselves.
Yeah. And we now have an open society, which is an incredibly good thing, and I wouldn't for a minute want to take anything away from it. I love the world of technology enormously, and the world of social networking and all the things like Twitter that I know
Right, we should talk about it. I actually have to take a break. I forgot that we're doing a TV show, so let's take a break, and we'll be right back with Stephen Fry, everybody. Welcome back, everybody. I'm here with Stephen Fry and not an audience, and we're beginning to talk about Twitter, which you kind of got me into, and a lot of other people. Were you involved at the very beginning with the Twitter?
Well, pretty much. I mean, I'm not involved in the business side of it,
right.
Or the biz side, one should call it, which is a little in-joke, because the founder is called Biz Stone.
Oh, that's
but
I wish there were an audience here.
They would be rolling around.
We would have warmed them into a fever pitch over that stuff.
But I was involved a year and a half, 2 years ago. I'd say I joined, and I've always been an early adopter of these technological things. I just love it. I don't know why. It's quite mysterious to me in some ways because, as we were saying earlier, people perceive me as rather old-fashioned, and they imagine I would go around with an ancient fountain pen, if not a goose quill, and are astonished that actually I love technology. I was the second person in Europe to own an Apple Mac back in January '84, the first being Douglas Adams, the author of Hitchhiker's Guide. He was a friend, and we both, like children on the first day of a new, a toy coming out, we both rushed to get hold of one, and then for months we would go around to each other's places swapping it. And when new things come out, I'm desperate to be a part of them.
But I think that shows it's not necessarily the idea of people expect you to be old-fashioned. I think it's the idea of a good and open mind to embrace the idea of it, or a new idea, or at least experiment with something.
Yeah.
The Twitter thing fascinated me because I expected it, much like the trolling and the mean comments that we were talking about earlier. I expected that. It seems to occur a lot less on Twitter.
That, isn't it? It's found a sort of level of politeness and decency. You get the odd snarky thing, and it's extraordinary, as anybody who tweets a lot will know, that within 140 characters, how attitude can come through.
Yeah.
And you can instantly detect when someone is being snarky and unpleasant and snitty.
Do you think that it affects thought? Do you think people begin to think differently if they think in these sound bites? If you construct... if you're Bertrand Russell, you don't say, well, I have to get, Principia Mathematica into 140 characters,
There are two ways of looking at that. I mean, one is to say that rationally it ought to, but I've always been against rationalism. I've always been an empiricist. It's just look and try and see what examples there are. And a good thing is Robert Graves wrote a very famous essay on poetry in which he said, can it pass what he called the telegram test? If you remember, there was a long period in which telegrams were sent, wires as they were called, in which, again, words were very expensive. It was a narrow bandwidth.
Right.
So people used to say, coming tomorrow, make room ready.
Old Cary Grant. Cary Grant, fine, how are you?
Exactly, that great. Right. Exactly, and using the word stop for a full stop.
Right.
And again, very terse. And Robert Graves said that poetry, which is, after all, the highest expression that we have, linguistically, should actually be that concentrated, like a telegram. And he had great fun criticising a Wordsworth poem called The Solitary Reaper. Behold her single in the field, yon solitary Highland lass, reaping and singing to herself. And he said, this is bad poetry because it actually is tautological. It's, here's a good word, pleonastic.
I have absolutely no idea. I'm thinking about dinosaurs when you say that.
It does sound like a pleonasm is like a repetition,
an
unnecessary repetition, like a tautology. It says, behold her single in the field, yon solitary Highland lass, reaping and singing to herself. So he said 3 times that she's on her own. Now, to Robert Graves, that is a bad example of poetry, and actually he would argue that if he'd tweeted it, he would have concentrated his mind better and come up with a better use of language. And actually, that's my argument about Twitter, is because you have to stop and think, oh, I've only got 140 characters for this. You can compress.
Everybody edits.
Yeah, and people are, in that sense, poetic. There's a concretization of what they're saying, which is rather often very elegant and delightful.
Do you think there is a bigger window into contemporary psyche and human by looking at these things? Does it give you because it is a kind of a marketing man's dream. You get to see what everybody is thinking.
I think, there's an element to that. It reminds me, there's a famous passage where Sherlock Holmes, in one of the Sherlock Holmes stories, talks about what were known as the agony columns. That's to say, the sort of personal columns at the back of newspapers.
Right.
And he would talk about, listen to all these cries and sobs and heart-rending noises coming from the millions of people strangers trying to contact each other, trying to contact other strangers, trying to sell things, trying to buy things, all these noises and whispers coming from the compressed humanity. And you could argue that really since the Industrial Revolution, this has just been the same thing, but it's increased and it's become closer. A good example, people moan about text abbreviations and say how terrible that is. But actually, if they look in the 18th century, time of Jefferson and people like that, when writing letters was very expensive again, it was the narrow bandwidth, people used to write YR for your, And they would write PLS for please, exactly the same principle.
Right.
Because it was expensive to send a lot of text. And they were hardly illiterate people.
No, they weren't. What about the use of, you were talking about it's an open society, and we're doing a broadcast television show now, which I forgot about until I started talking about it again. But if the idea of censorship for profanity or control, do you think there is, I mean, because it's really the Wild West still in terms of the internet. There is no real control, no real kind of policing of it that I can see. Would you advocate that?
No, personally I wouldn't. I mean, I'm pretty much a libertarian when it comes to that kind of thing. I personally have never understood why people are offended by references to particular parts of the body over other parts of the body. Why,
I don't understand.
Why testicles should be more offensive than knuckles seems to me a matter of cultural choice.
I call my testicles my knuckles anyway, and they do look a bit knuckly.
I know, but some people are, and they say that it's, they're hung up about sex. There's a big shame thing about sex.
Are you hung up about sex? I mean, you're a gay man. You've clearly had to, think about how you were going to explain that.
I have to confess that deep within me are the same strange hang-ups that most people have. If I saw two people making love in the street, I would regard it as a very different sight to two people shaking hands in the street or two people eating together.
It's a very different act. Yeah. I mean, the act confers a different intimacy.
And you might say there's almost a sacredness about it, which means that one of the reasons we don't want to be a voyeur to people's, activities.
Right.
Or that might be exciting and for all kinds of reasons.
But it's exciting because it is a taboo. If the act itself is sacred, then the excitement is surely within the taboo of watching the sacred act and being profane around the sacristy of that. The idea of kind of how naughty can we be. But I always thought that about cocaine, actually. That whenever I took cocaine, and this is why I was very different from you when you took it, because I think most people when they take cocaine, they start thinking, what's the worst thing I can get up to this evening? How awful can I be? And I don't think you really behave that way.
I used to play Scrabble with myself on the computer.
Well, perhaps that's how bad you could be. But the Scrabble on the computer is. I still do that obsessively.
It's
on
weird.
My Scrabble.
Yes, it's something about one's mind. But just to pinch the loaf of that thought, as it were, if an alien was looking down on us and inspecting our language, they would see that the worst thing we do on this planet is we torture, we kill, we abuse, we harm people. We're cruel. And those are the things of which we should be ashamed. Amongst the best things we do is we breed children and we raise them and we make love to each other, we adore each other, we're affectionate and fond of each other. Those are the good things we do. And they would say, how odd that the language for the awful things is used casually all the time. Oh, the traffic was agony, it was hell, it was cruel. Oh, it was torture waiting in line. So he's used words like torture. That's the worst word.
Right.
And yet, if we use the F word, which is the word for generating our species, for showing physical affection one to another, then we're taken off air and accused of being wicked and irresponsible and a bad influence to children. Now, we're part of this culture, so we often don't question it. But if you think of someone from outside it, it is very strange.
We are very weird indeed.
We are so it is entirely true.
Hey, we're going to take a break, Stephen, apparently. We'll be right back with Stephen Fry, everybody.
Enjoy your break. Craig Ferguson's dark, massive physique can be dangerous in the wrong hands. What appears to be a large birthmark in the shape of a referee's whistle offers invigorating surprises.
How very strange.
I've completely forgotten that.
Well, I don't remember it. That was 6 months before I went to rehab.
It was a game, I think. I think you were a contestant on a game.
It was a sketch, and it was 1991, right? It was an AIDS benefit in London. Yeah. You were hosting, I think, or you certainly were very much involved.
I was. I directed it.
Right. So that would be involved in directing it, and then. That sketch, it was yourself, Hugh Laurie, Emma Freud, I think,
right,
and me. And Hugh, of course, has lapsed into obscurity in America.
I don't know. He's a cleaner at Fox Studios. I go and feed him there.
It's unbelievable what's happened to Hugh here, right?
Yes, I've been thinking about this a lot because at the moment I'm writing the second volume of my autobiography, which covers the years when I met Hugh at university and we worked together. And it's sort of unbelievable, but it's so not unbelievable as well.
In a way, he's a very talented actor.
He's very talented. He's got a fantastic charisma about him.
Yes.
From the earliest time when people saw him at a party, they would kind of go, who's that guy?
Well, I remember Emma Thompson talking about him as how he's the most gorgeous creature she ever saw when she first went to university.
Totally smitten by him,
I
remember.
Yeah. And now he's become this rather limpy, cranky American drug addict doctor.
It's strange because he also had a very traditional British upbringing. Went to Eton College and Cambridge and
all
those things.
You are, I think, the quintessential Englishman, but yet you're very American as well. Do you have a place here, I take it, right?
Yes, here in Hollywood. I love America. I used to live in New York and I have an apartment there. I absolutely adore this country. Like you, I feel I could live here for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I'm completely smitten to you.
But you're a citizen now, of course.
I am, yeah. I would you do that?
I would. I mean, I'm a resident alien at the moment, which is charming enough, and I feel pride in America, but then I felt pride in America before I even set foot here. It's a very odd thing.
I know what you mean.
I would watch movies and, I know, something like John Ford's Young Mr. Lincoln, and I would feel a sort of emotional whoomph inside me as if it was the founding of my country, and America has that, It's
well, in a way, I think it is, isn't it? Yeah. Because America is a country founded by forward thinkers. As far as I know, it's the first real post-Enlightenment country, right? And certainly political system. And the idea that I have. It began when I became a citizen. I did it very publicly. Well, as publicly as this show will allow. Yeah. And I was fascinated. It was at the end of the Bush-Cheney administration, and I was kind of interested to see how Americans were on the point of being discouraged. Yeah. And I thought this is terrible in America that people should be discouraged. Though of all things, I think Americans are optimists. Wouldn't you think?
That is, it's their abiding. I mean, if there isn't a sort of national American emotion, I would call it optimism. If there's a national English one, I would call it embarrassment. I mean, not even pessimism. It's just shame, embarrassment, confusion. I said in the book that I noticed you have there.
So we should probably plug it.
But that if we say only in America, you hear that phrase, it always refers to something astounding, something new, novel, remarkable, brave, bold, zany, ridiculous, colourful, all in America. If you said only in Britain, it would be something cold,
that's horrible,
damp, Huey, miserable,
Britain,
negative. Oh God, only in Britain.
Now, why do you think that is? More so about the Brits than the Americans. I think the Americans.
It's a very interesting point, and actually, that thing we were talking about earlier, being bipolar. I don't want to bang that drum too much, but there is a theory. And it's a beguiling one, which is that if you think of the population of America, with two incredibly important exceptions, that's to say most of the black population and the Native American population, the rest came here by choice.
Right.
They wanted to come. They wanted to leave Europe, mostly Europe, and come here and start a new life. So, in a sense, the gene pool is people who said, no, this isn't good enough. There can be something better. I'm leaving. And they left behind people who said, oh, I daren't.
Oh, yeah, we'll stay.
I think we'll stay. So Europe is just basically a gene pool of people whose ancestors said, oh, I don't think I can risk. No, I can't risk it. America is a gene pool of people say, let's risk it.
Yeah,
let's try it.
And you think that's still
I feel it. It's certainly in the air. I mean, I wouldn't obviously establish it as an academic truth because it needs to be studied, but it's a beguiling, as I say. It's a tempting way of looking at the difference.
It's certainly the only place that I feel kind of at home now.
Me too.
It is a wonderful country. We have to take a break though, because it is America, and you have to
there is that side.
Yeah, all right. We'll be right back.
What did that to you?
Banner or bandits?
The Bandersnatch. Well, I'd better have a look.
Bands? There's been some debate about that.
I never get involved in politics.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm here with Stephen Fry, who's in the Alice in Wonderland.
I was the one on the left, the cat.
I thought you looked charming as the young lady. Oh, hello. Are we still playing it?
Me.
Yeah, it's all right. Normally, the sound of the audience braying and hooting with laughter
covers
will cover up these
glitches.
technical errors. But now, tell me about about your film career, because I would think that you're very clearly a very bright man. You must be terribly patient to work as an actor, because an actor, basically, you get told what to wear and where to stand and what
Indeed.
to say.
There are lines on the floor.
Yeah.
See, I enjoy it, but I don't think I'd enjoy it if it was all I ever did. I think the fact that I write and do other things as well means it's rather like a wonderful holiday where you arrive in a car, a cup of coffee's put in your hand, coloured tape stand there. Really, there's your lines. You don't have to make up any new ones. The odd bit of improvisation if you want, but mostly not. And repeat it a bit and watch movies in your trailer in the meantime.
And is there a part of the idea of going from England to being a Hollywood movie star? Do you think that's still a... Because they come over in droves now, these thin, interesting young people that can do American accents. And
I'm not cut from quite that cloth, it has to be said. The odd sort of Nazi villain or something like that is a very pleasurable thing to do in a movie.
Why are the Nazis always English?
Well, because we don't offend the English.
Yeah, that's right.
We can't moan that we've been done down, because for 300 years we had an empire and we were the top dog, so we basically have to put up with now being treated as if we are the scum, which is fair enough.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, sometimes a part comes along. I was very lucky in the 90s to play Oscar Wilde in a movie, and that was a lead part, but generally speaking, I'm not going to get the parts that Johnny Depp has just turned down, or Zac Efron has been offered. You know?
He's good, that Zac Efron. I watched him in that.
Orson Welles picture, he was terrific.
I saw him in 17 again, not quite the same picture, but I watched it under protest, and I thought, this kid's actually really talented.
He's talented and likeable.
You know what, I suffer from this, and I wonder, this is a real internet thing. Beautiful people are not allowed to be talented.
No.
People get very angry when very good-looking people are talented. This Efron kid is clearly a talented actor, but yet he's very beautiful, so that I think that makes people quite angry sometimes, don't you think?
Very much so, very much so. And if they turn out to be musically gifted, and as he obviously is too, he can dance, and that they're good at baseball or something, then they basically better look out for dark corners.
Yeah. Do you follow the darker side of celebrity culture? Do you follow the TMZs and the gossip sites?
I don't. I'm not even vaguely interested. I never know who anybody is. I'm absolutely hopeless at parties.
There's a certain power in that, I think, isn't there?
But I literally, people said, Michael, what did she say? And I go, who? And I go, oh, that woman there. Yes, Madonna. What did she say?
Yeah.
Oh, was that Madonna? I literally don't know.
You can tell her from her arms. She's got very strong arms and a profound Cockney accent.
Yeah, I didn't. I'd spoken to her on the phone, funnily enough. She'd asked me to play a part in a film she'd already gone to. But she always looks different every time. And I'm sure if I saw Lady Gaga at a party, I wouldn't recognise her unless she had a wedding cake on her head.
I've only heard her name, Lady Gaga. I think I've become a real fogey now.
She's rather good, though, I have to say.
Yes, that's what everybody says. Yeah, I don't know enough about it.
She's kind of extraordinary.
It's all kind of... I mean,
we get to an age where the cycles just repeat, and that's the problem.
But I think the only thing to do to save... this is what I try for myself anyway, is the only thing to try and save myself from bitterness is enjoy what they're doing now.
Yeah.
You know, rather than say, oh, things were better. Because I remember everyone saying, you know, when I was about that age, people saying, oh, in the 60s, that's when things were really great. And I went, really? Yeah. You know, I don't believe that.
The people mean their late teens and early 20s.
That's when they were...
It doesn't matter whether they were in the 60s, in the 70s or the 80s. You can always justify that period as having better socks and better tunes and better haircuts, but it's not about that. It's about the fact you were young. Bliss was it in that dawn to be alive, but to be young was very heaven.
Now, who was that again?
Wordsworth.
Wordsworth, and on the eve of the French Revolution. Yeah, that's a kind of an odd way to approach it. But are you thinking that you will stay here now then, that you will you...
I have things that take me back home. My parents still live in England, and I have other, obviously, dear friends and things who live there. And there's a television show I do regularly once a year in
Once a year is not really regularly, Stephen. And in television terms, I think you do an annual show.
It's not frequent, but it is regular.
Right, okay.
I know what you mean. But I could easily live here for the rest of my life, actually, I have to say.
Would it be California? Do you like the sun?
Yeah, I do. And actually, I like California.
I like California. It's a very diverse state.
Northern California is probably the most beautiful part in the world.
Yeah, I don't drink wine, though. I always feel that I'm kind of missing out on something if I'm up there. You know,
that's true. I mean, obviously the wine, but then the sequoia around there. And,
I do enjoy trees, so that's I'll probably take care of it then. You know, well, if you don't want some wine, how about a lovely tree?
A lovely big tree.
Well, you've become quite an advocate for things environmental, haven't you?
Well, certainly, yes. I've just done a series of films about disappearing species, about some of the rarest species on Earth. And in fact, I've just before Christmas, I was translocating, not personally, but witnessing and filming the translocation of 4 northern white rhinoceroses back from a zoo in Prague,
right,
Czech Republic, to Kenya. And there are only 2 others in the world.
Were they Czechoslovakian rhinos, or
they had been found in the Sudan, and some of them had bred there.
Right.
But there are 2 others in San Diego Zoo here in California, and otherwise that's it. There are only 6 on the planet. And there are subspecies of rhinoceros.
Wouldn't the idea then to keep them in captivity and breed them before you?
It's a funny thing about these animals. They stop breeding after. They'll breed once,
right?
But if there aren't enough males around, it's an interesting sexual social thing,
right?
That males need to provoke others into the kind of mixture of rage, defensiveness, territoriality that sparks off a need to breed. And if they're just a couple of males who become friends, they no longer get sparked up.
Urbane 2 rhinos talking about sport.
Unfortunately, it suggests that amongst male mammals, the need to show off fa figura, as they say in Italy, that whole posturing macho thing, is somehow necessary to get the old seed, you know.
It sounds a bit like that Jersey Shore thing. All these. Yeah. Have you seen that?
I've seen bits of it. I haven't watched it.
I despair a little bit when I see stuff like that.
I want to be in touch with my inner girl.
I want to have abdominal muscles like that. That's what I'd like. That young lady has fantastic abdominal muscles.
Phenomenal.
We have to take a break, don't we? Welcome back, everyone. Well, that's pretty much the show tonight, Stephen.
I think it went really well.
I think it was okay. I was a bit nervous and stiff in the beginning, which
those chairs over there hated me.
Yeah, no, I think they were all right. I found it a little disconcerting in the beginning.
It's strange, isn't it? I mean, partly an audience. I don't know what the people at home like the audience. I think find them annoying. I bet people sometimes think they find it annoying, but now that it's absent, they may find
they realise that we're annoying.
Chilly. Yes, there's nothing else to find
it's
annoying.
Just that it's not the audience that's annoying, it's us. Or in particular, me, because you're not here every night, so it's got to be me who's the annoying one.
They tune in for you. They don't tune in for me, let's be honest.
I don't know. But anyway, what we did do is we did conduct an experiment.
Yeah.
And I think now we'll think about what that is. But I've enjoyed myself talking to you. I always do, but it's nice to talk to you with less shouting. And I'm sorry that in our past conversations I've been so shouty.
It's your job, and you do it very, very well.
Thank you. Well, good luck in your endeavours. I think that becoming an American is a fine idea.
Yeah.
You'd be a great asset to our nation. You have to get a tattoo like me, though. Yeah.
Oh, I couldn't do that. What does that say?
It says "Join or Die." It's Benjamin Franklin did a cartoon for the Pennsylvania Gazette in 1754 about the threat of the then the natives.
Oh, right.
But it became a potent symbol of the.
New Hampshire is live free or die, isn't it?
Live free or die, yeah. And the number plates where it's written are made in a prison, which is.
Oh, that's ironic.
Yeah,
I might have the W.H. Auden line: "We must love one another or die."
That's probably all right too. It's a little less dramatic.
It's a bit gay.
It's a little
but that's
you are a bit gay.
That's the package, I'm afraid.
Well, we're done. I guess we'll mosey off into the night. Thank you for joining us, everyone, and I'll see you tomorrow with an audience and some skeletons. And what else do we have tomorrow? Guests. And it's actually pretty much like this, except louder. Good night, everybody. and my only guest this evening is a wonderful man who's my friend, and I'm always happy when he's in Los Angeles, and that's why we are here tonight. Normally we wouldn't be doing a show on May the 22nd. But Stephen's in town. The lovely Stephen Fry, everybody. Stephen Fry. Stephen, it's lovely to see you. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
It's a joy. It's nice to see you and nice to see Jeff. And talking of big penises...
yes.
I had a wonderful pickup line the other day, which is, I've got 8 inches for you. Admittedly, in 2 installments.
That's nice.
That's rather sweet.
Were you the subject of this pickup line?
No, I just thought it was a good one. Apparently, women like wit and modesty and self-deprecation in men and aren't interested in large penises.
I think they're a little bit interested in large penises. I think there's
you did that?
Well, well, that's the amount of interest, not the size of the penis. So I think they're they're probably like this much interested in this much penis. I think. I don't know. I'm not an expert on.
No, nor am I. No, nor am I.
All right then.
No. Sorry.
How, you know, since the last time you were here, I saw your documentary, or I've seen your... What is the right way to say it? Seen it or saw?
I saw.
Observed your documentary series on the United States, where you covered the entire 50 states.
Each state, that's right.
Each state, and you drove around them in a London taxi.
I did, yes. The 48 contiguous were in a taxi and then flew to Alaska and Hawaii.
Yeah, it's very difficult to get to Hawaii by taxi.
Though, oddly enough, I just finished a show called Gadget Man, in which I converted my taxi to an amphibious vehicle and drove it along the Thames. We put a propeller in the back. We drove it off the road onto the Thames in the middle of London.
Bond, like
exactly, yeah.
Wow, that's...
At one point I was overtaken by a duck, so it wasn't fantastically effective. But it was the dream of a lifetime, and oddly no one seems to have done it, certainly on British television. Simply regard America as not a whole, but as 50 states.
It was an interesting thing to watch for me, because I've lived here for a long time, and I thought, I can't believe he went there and didn't go there. You know, it's like if you go to someone's hometown and you didn't go to the donut shop, what the hell's wrong with you? Did a lot of people get angry?
Usually the famous donut shop.
Right, exactly. Did people get angry with you about you didn't go to there?
Naturally. You can't do everything. I mean, it would have had to have been an hour for each state, which is great. You could easily do an hour on Texas or an hour on California. You can slightly harder do an hour on Delaware, say, or North Dakota, with all due respect to both of them, which are places.
My favourite, I think it was Iowa, when you went, Iowa is a lovely place with lovely things. And then we moved right on. I was like, people in Iowa are like, what the hell? Where are you going? We haven't shown you the donut shop.
The most amazing day, which just shows what documentary filming can be like, was when we started in Asheville, North Carolina, which is a very charming, very beautiful city, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we went up in a hot air balloon and it looked over the Smoky Mountains, the Blue Ridge Mountains. It was a gorgeous autumn fall day with a blaze of scarlet and yellow maple and leaves of the most shiningly gorgeous colour that just speak New England, and it was heavenly. And the air was clean, and we lowered ourselves down, and I picked a maple leaf off a tree, and then we dropped, and then we drove all the way to Knoxville in Tennessee.
Been there too?
To the campus of the University of Tennessee. And I hadn't really been told about this. There was a woman waiting for me behind a chain-link fence. I got out of the cab, and the camera crew followed me, and she said, "Can you put on these gloves, please?" And I put on some latex gloves and some sort of paper shoes with little... And then she opened a padlock of this, and I could see razor wire at the top, and she opened the gate, and I went in, and the gate was closed, and then I was aware of sort of things around me. It was a kind of garden, but there were sort of white bits and black bits, and I wasn't quite sure. And she said, "Welcome to this facility." And she said, "I'm going to introduce you to some individuals." She used the word individual of each of these, what turned out to be dead bodies. And it was the famous, in its own world, body farm, where people who leave their bodies to science, the cadavers are then put through all kinds of extraordinary experiences. And this is to help forensic anthropology.
You know, rate of decomposition
gruesome
and stuff.
Gus Grissom in CSI, the original CSI, for example, you know, who could date a time of death according to the insect larvae that had begun to start.
Forensic science, like Sherlock Holmes, for example.
Exactly. But they learned all these kind of time of death things about the gruesome stuff of the grubs and the maggots in the body from this single place. It was the first of its kind. So what they'd often do is they'd take a body, they put it wrap it in a carpet, put it in the trunk of a car for 3 days, and then bury it in the woods.
And this is legal?
Yeah. because that's so often what a murderer does. He kills someone in blind panic, wraps them in a carpet, puts them in the trunk of his car, gets blind drunk for 3 days, and then drives to the woods and buries it. Right. And there's a very particular pattern and so, you know, sometimes the police need to prove that someone was murdered or wasn't.
By following... Would you, when in the, you know, I'm sure a long time from now when you expire, would you have your body go through that?
That's the question I ask myself, because the thing that will never leave you, it just won't ever leave you, is the smell.
Yeah.
The smell of mortality is a most unpleasant thing. We're all lucky enough, almost all of us are lucky enough, never to have seen a human body, let alone smelt one in a state of decomposition.
Right.
And I went in never having seen a dead body. I'm not a Catholic, so I hadn't seen one in a casket.
Right.
I hadn't seen an embalmed one, you know. And I left having seen about 200, some of which were literally, there was one that had been put in a sort of dumper skip, whatever you call them, sort of big thing, rubbish, trash thing, and it was basically just a load of bones in a brown soup.
Does this traumatize you?
It was like Satan clawing his way up through my nostrils and trying to tear my brain out.
It's horrifying.
It is horrifying, but on the other hand, there's a strange optimism that comes over you that you realise how we are what Burroughs called a soft machine, and it breaks down instantly, and it goes back into the earth, you know, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. It goes into the worms, and that's it. And it just makes you feel all the more determined to keep the bits that work, going, surprisingly, that don't rot.
Are you a believer in an afterlife? Does that
No, which is to say, I'm along with Plato and the Greeks. Anyone who tells you that they know what happens to you after you die is either a liar or a fool.
Yeah, I must say, it does seem to be a bit of guesswork going on, if you ask me.
Absolutely. I mean, the number of people who've said, honey, when I'm dead, I'll come back and visit you. And they happen not to.
This has happened to you personally, or just
not
you?
Personally,
yeah, right.
But, you know, so people said to me, I saw a ghost, and I go, no, you didn't, dear.
Yeah. I wonder, are you, I mean, it does seem to, are you an atheist?
I suppose I am. I take my cue from the great philosopher Bertrand Russell, who...
I love Bertrand Russell.
Is wonderful.
Yes.
I advise anybody just to have a fun time on
His
YouTube.
autobiography?
Isn't it extraordinary?
Oh, it's hilarious.
It's very, very funny.
Yeah.
And he spoke in this beautiful, high, piping, extremely aristocratic voice.
Yeah.
He was Earl Russell, in fact. And he, you know, he came from a very distinguished family. His aunt danced with Napoleon, and he knew Robert Browning, and I met a man who knew him, which makes that connection really
very
weird.
Nice, yeah.
But he was asked why he was an atheist, and he said, surely you mean agnostic, because you don't know there isn't a God.
Right.
He said, no, I don't know there isn't a God. That's quite true. He said, but I also don't know that there isn't a giant teapot orbiting Venus in such an angle and way that we will never see it. However, I am perfectly entitled to base my life on the supposition that such a teapot does not exist and not to allow my life to be determined by those who do believe in such a teapot. And that is my view about God.
I like Carl Sagan's thing about atheism, which he said, when people say, is there a God or is there not a God, he said, the question is too vague. You know, you have to define what do you mean by this. His idea, you know, him saying the idea of a large white man with a beard deciding what goes on in people's individual lives seemed absurd. But the idea that there was an intelligence beyond what he understood, the St. Augustine's kind of, you know, to understand the mind of God is like putting the ocean into a cup. That seems like a little more...
But it's a very new way of looking at the world, and indeed much of the world, most of the world, are animists, and they have many gods, and I think that's much more attractive. Why there should be one? It's very recent. There was one pharaoh who decided...
Akhenaten.
Akhenaten, exactly, and he was killed for it.
Yes, he was. They were very upset with
the priests decided...
He was too Tutankhamun's dad.
That's right.
Because Tutankhamun's original name was Tutankhaten. And then he changed it back to Tutankhamun because his father was an idiot.
He's good.
Yes.
He's good.
Yes, I remember hearing about that.
King Tut's, exactly.
Yeah.
And he was the first, on record at least, as a monotheist who thought there was one God. But it's not natural to believe in one God. I would think quite natural to believe in a sort of principle of trees and a principle of rivers, in the way that the Greeks did, which makes fantastic storytelling.
Yeah, I mean, it does, but people get very cross if you kind of suggest that perhaps
there's a passive-aggressive victim status that religious people now have, which is that they go, oh, these fundamental atheists. Well, I'm not a fundamentalist atheist. Being an atheist doesn't mean anything to me. I don't want anybody else to be an atheist. I have no interest in spreading atheism any more than if there was a word to describe someone who doesn't believe in the tooth fairy, a flimpist, for example, then I would have to say I'm a flimpist. But being a flimpist is meaningless. It just means I don't believe in the tooth fairy.
Right.
It doesn't involve a set of values. It doesn't involve... My set of values comes from humanism, from the Enlightenment, from the very set of values that built this country. The set of values that of Thomas Paine and Thomas Jefferson and people who actually thought for themselves and didn't take any text as gospel or any which Marxists did and which many religions do. I just think it's terrible to be told what's the case. To be told.
Well, the whole idea is it's meant to be free thought here.
Yeah,
isn't it?
free thought.
Yeah, I think it is.
Exactly.
We'll take a break so you can freely enjoy the products advertised, and we'll be right back. We'll be right back with Stephen Fry. Welcome back. I'm here with the lovely Stephen Fry. We were talking about is there or is there not a God? You might want to go to another channel if that bothers you right now. I tell you what I do think about religion, which I think atheists lack, and I think that they should get on, is some theatre. You know, some...
Completely agree. Ritual and ceremony.
Something big and flashy that says, I am an atheist, and they have, you know, like smoke and, you know, and curtains.
Well, there's a church in London where they have atheist services every Sunday. And,
really?
Yeah, and quite good people attend them. And far more than the nearby ordinary church, which has a little cluster of 10 people going in. And
yes, but popularity doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
All right, yeah.
But they sing Queen songs. They sing Superstition by Stevie Wonder. They all get handed the words, you know, just like at a service, and then someone will come up and talk about Dirac's theory of matter and antimatter, for example, and why it is one of the most stunning theories ever evolved by mankind on the nature of the universe. And so people will talk about science and about discoveries about you know, animal behavior and so on, as well as by wonder and joy.
And thinking, well, if really,
you've got to have a focus, a name to give your, you know. So of course, if I was in a plane that was going, down, I'd be going, God, please, God.
Yeah.
Of course I would. I mean, there's a great Jewish joke, and my mother's Jewish, so technically I'm Jewish. And
why is that funny to you? It's absolutely true.
I'm a
You're like, oh,
Jew.
Stephen, you're not. Oh, yes, he is. My oldest son.
I'm not a Jew. I'm a Jewish.
Yeah, right. There you are.
Not the whole hog. Yeah, someone once said.
Hog. Yeah, hog.
You
No,
never have. But there's a story of this couple whose mother has come with them on their holiday, and they've got a baby, and the grandmother has left to look after the little bonny baby with a little hat sitting on the beach, and they go off and eat. She said, "Go eat, Preston. You know, I'll look after the baby." And suddenly this huge wave swells up and takes the baby, and snatches it away.
This is awful.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
And the mother calls and says, "I've been a bad Jewess all my life. I've never gone to temple. I'm so bad. Please, though, if you bring back the baby, I will worship you. I will be so good. I'll keep 2 fridges. I'll do everything right." And then there's another wave, swells, and the baby is deposited back on the beach. And the grandmother looks down and goes, "And the hat?"
Do you ever worry about, because people get so aggressive, to be honest, about their religion, about what they believe, and you're quite outspoken. I mean, you're an out gay man. You say what you think, and you live by what you believe.
Yes.
And do you ever think, I just can't get into an argument with anyone today?
I had that experience just a few days ago. I only arrived in America 3 days ago, and the week before, I'd been in St. Petersburg in Russia, where they've just passed...
I've been there. It's a beautiful city.
Lovely city.
Yeah.
But they've passed a very unfortunate law which makes it illegal to promote homosexuality, whatever that means. In theory, it means that you can't tell children about Tchaikovsky, one of the great heroes of that city, because he was a gay man. He wrote clearly in his diary that he was. You can't say, for example, that part of his identity may be in his music, because that would be promoting somehow homosexuality. And people have been locked up. There was a lawyer who tested it, who was actually straight, saying, my wife and I have as best friends a lesbian couple, and we think they should be treated equally and that their lives are valuable. And he was, was immediately arrested. So the man Milanov who brought this through, I interviewed him, and as it happens, I'm very big in Russia, so I was chased by this huge press pack into his office, and we eventually sort of got rid of them. And he had the same arguments. I've been doing this documentary for 2 years on and off when I've had spare time, called Out There, about being gay in different parts of the world. And I'd been in Uganda, and I'd been in India, and I'd been in Brazil, and I'd been here in the United States. And there's a common thread amongst homophobes. One is that you choose to be gay. I can imagine choosing to be gay in San Francisco or in London or Manchester, but choosing to be gay in a country like Uganda, where they shoot you and beat you up and burn your house, seems a very odd choice. The other
why would that be a problem? Anyway, if you choose to be gay. I mean, I choose to be gay. Okay, fine. All right, yeah.
It's bizarre. The second one is that they insist on their absolutely evangelical, all gay people, on recruiting others to be gay, which is bizarre. And the third is that they're exactly the same as paedophiles. There's no difference. I actually got a Ugandan minister to say on camera, he's the Minister of Ethics and Integrity. It's the only such ministry in the world. And I said to him, look, even if these 3 utterly false supports on which you base your homophobia were true, which they aren't, there's so much more to worry about in your country than the odd gay person going to bed with the other gay person. For example, you have almost an epidemic of child rape in this country, which is just frightening. And he said, but it is the right kind of child rape.
Wow. He said
I said that was on camera. Do you know that was on camera? He said, yes. He said, can you just explain what you meant? He said, well, it is men raping girls, which is natural. So you just... where do you begin? And where do you begin? And this... so it has tried my patience a little. And in Brazil, there was a senator who was fiercely... And his big argument was that it was unnatural. And fortunately, I'd armed myself with a few friends who were zoologists who gave me a number between 400-odd and 2,000-odd. It was very hard for them to be more specific. Examples of homosexual behavior observed in the animal kingdom. And as I put to him, there's only one example ever been observed in the animal kingdom of homophobia. And that's in the human race. So which of us is unnatural?
That's fascinating. What was his answer?
He had no answer to that at all. He said, I don't want to talk about that's nothing, it's not relevant. So he then started talking about the Bible. And of course, as you know, the Bible is far more interested in circumcision and slavery and what you may do with the daughters of the people you have conquered than it is in homosexuality, which it mentions, I think, only 3 times.
Yeah. I have to stop you there. I have to stop you there just so that we can go to a commercial break and delight the sponsors with our conversation. Sorry. We'll be right back, everyone. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm here with the lovely Stephen Fry, who's just informed me not only is it Arthur Conan Doyle's birthday today, but it is
Richard Wagner.
Wagner, the composer, who
200 to the day.
I know nothing about Wagner, nothing at all, except I'm a bit frightened of him because didn't the Nazis like him a lot?
Yes, he didn't marry Natalie Wood, in case you were thinking of...
That's Robert Wagner.
Yeah. Just to be absolutely clear. He was a German composer born in Leipzig on 22nd of May, 1813, and he was a towering genius who cast a shadow over the entire 19th and 20th centuries in music and art. On the other hand, he was also, if I may say so, a howling... Ooh la la! He was a dreadful man.
Yeah.
And I went out to make a film about him because from an early age, I was obsessed by his music. It is so powerful, so remarkable. It gets parts of you that no other musician that I'd ever heard does. I mean, I love all kinds of music, serious classical music, or indeed, rock music, pop music, jazz, all kinds. But there's something about Wagner that was so special. And yet, as I said earlier, with the Jewish mother, this man who specifically wrote an article, a notorious pamphlet called On Jewishness and Music, in which he attacked Jews quite horribly, specifically Mendelssohn, the composer, and Meyerbeer, who was the biggest composer of that period, though is now largely forgotten. And but it was very deep and visceral. It was how repulsive Jews were, and that was bad enough to read this great genius writing such things. But what was worse was that 50 years after he died, Adolf Hitler came to power, and Hitler had already been many times to Bayreuth, the theatre that Wagner built, and was a friend of Wagner's descendants and family. And then called him, they called him the future Siegfried, the savior of Germany. And every Nuremberg rally, Hitler would go to Nuremberg and have the Meistersingers from Nuremberg, the master singers, one of Wagner's great operas, played. So I went and made this film, and it was painful because I had to confront a lot of the problems where, if you love some art, some work, but you hate
the artist. Yeah.
It's like there is somewhere in Genesis. Is it? It's the fruit. By their fruit shall you know them. In other words, the tree may be ugly and gnarled, but if the fruit is sweet and delicious, you don't question it. But you do question it. And I saw this amazing woman called Anita Walfisch, Lasker Walfisch, who had, as a little girl, been at Auschwitz, and she had this astonishing talent on the cello, so she played for the Kapelle, the sort of little band at Auschwitz, in the female version, which was conducted by a niece or cousin, I think, of Mahler, the composers. And that's what saved her from death, because the rest of her family, who weren't so talented, all perished. And she told me about this one occasion which just sent chills through me. She said, I was sitting picking lice from a friend's scalp, and the camp doctor walked in. You probably heard of him. His name was Josef Mengele.
Good Lord.
I said, God, I've certainly heard of him.
He's one of the most evil person who ever lived.
Exactly. Yeah. And I said, what did you see? He said, well, my bowels turned to water. I was just terrified because we all knew that people would disappear into surgery and they were never seen again, or they were mutilated beyond belief, and there were screams come from his surgery. And I thought, oh God, he wants to find out what makes the brain of a musician or something. He's going to cut me open. And so I looked at him and trembled, and he pointed to my instrument, snapped his finger, and I thought, oh, thank God, he just wants me to play. So I said, what happened? She said, I followed him into his office, and he pointed me to the corner, and I played. And I said, do you remember what you played? She said, of course I remember. It was Träumerei, which is a piece by Schumann, which is transcendently beautiful. And I said, and when it finished, I said, he waved his hand away. And I said, did he thank you? And he said, oh, you sweet boy, you still don't really understand, do you? And I said, well, I'm just thinking, an intelligent man and his girl plays beautiful music. He said, do you thank your telephone or your washing machine? We weren't human.
Good Lord.
Jews were not human. That is why they could do what they did to us. Because they really did not think we were human. And that was because they had had 10 years of Goebbels and Streicher and these films and this propaganda
but the kernel which you're talking about coming from Wagner and the anti-Semitism from that period.
The glory of the Aryan race.
Yeah.
And this Untermenschen, these literally is German for subhumans. And that's what the Jews were Untermenschen or Affenmenschen, ape men. And if you do that for a generation, you just make some population feel that the other population are not human, they can do anything to them. That's what the Holocaust proves. But anyway, so
Wagner,
against a radiant piece of music that is about love and is anti-power and is anti-fascist. So that was a really. This has become a very heavy example of the Late Late Show. But I think the format can take it.
I think it's fine. Look, they can go away if they don't like it. I'm fine, but
we can talk about rosy nipples at another point.
I think rosy nipples have a place, but that place is tucked away for the evening. I think it's appropriate to talk about anything you want to talk about. It's very late at night, But what I find fascinating is the idea that you are not affected? Your appreciation of the art is not affected? Because I was like, oh, I caramba. Ooh.
Yeah.
He'd take his beautiful music and stick it. Crikey. Tutti Fruits.
I do. Every single time I do, until I hear it.
That's
and then as soon as I hear it, it takes me somewhere so beautiful, so profound, so extraordinary. He was a pygmy compared to the art he made, and that's often the case. And in the film, the Bayreuth Festival, the Festspielhaus, the festival playhouse that he founded to make his own music, his own theatre, a unique theatre with this. The orchestra is under the stage, and it is the only one that's allowed to break any safety laws, so that when the ring starts, the 4 nights of the Ring of the Nibelungen, this sequence of dramas begins, you're in complete blackness. There are no exit signs. There's no spillage of light from the orchestra because it's under the stage where it blends with the singers. And for this deep blackness, this note sounds out, and then the river, the Rhine, appears to glitter across the stage slowly, and it's as if the world is being born. And it's an amazing moment. And it's moments like that just shiver. They pass that test that Glenn Miller had, you know, that James Stewart said, you know, I want to hear that sound. You know, that sound. Yeah. And he got it.
But do you think it's best not to know about the artists of the art that you like, the musicians and painters? Because there's been a couple of that have done some nice pictures as well. I mean, you have to be...
So true.
You know,
so true. Some, they've beaten their wives, they've betrayed, they've done all kinds of dreadful things. It's really, really hard to
I don't have, and this is in no way a reflection on having you here, but there's some people I won't have in the show because I'm in such awe of what they do. Like David Bowie has not been here and will not be here. No. Not that he's what, you know, can I be here? But
begging.
Yeah, you're like, can I be on your show? Right? But I don't want him to come here because I am such a fan. I'd hate him to be a
letdown.
Yeah, I don't want that. No. And so...
and in the same way, I would hate it if someone told me that Laurel and Hardy didn't get on and never spoke to each other.
I have good news.
As it happens, I know they do love each other. But if someone told me that, it would be horrible.
Stephen, it's always a joy talking to you. I'm afraid we're out of time.
Can't believe I had a most magnificent time too.
Yeah, I feel that we should have included the robot skeleton more, but...
I'm sorry we didn't. I'm sorry.
Quite a lot.
Stephen Fry, everyone, we'll be right back. We'll be right back.
What did we learn on the show tonight, Greg?
Well, we learned a lot about Wagner, didn't we? Listen, if anything happened tonight that upset you, I'm sorry that you get upset by people talking, but I still believe people talking and saying what they think and saying how they feel is a good idea. So, you'll be fine. Go to sleep.